If you're looking for a full-featured budget-class ham HT with an easy-to-read LCD screen, look no further. One of the recent trends in budget-class ham HT has been the use of large, colorful LED screens. Inside or in the shade, these are very nice devices. The downside is that they are quite often hard to read in bright sunlight. For folks who use their radios outside a lot, this can be a big deal. It's not unusual for me to get a comment or two about readability in bright sunlight. The solution to this issue is stepping back a bit to some slightly older radio designs that make use of LCD screens. While the screens are a bit smaller, they still display all the relevant data to include simultaneous A and B band displays when you select the radio's dual watch or dual receive modes. The Retevis RT-85 is a couple of years old, but as we'll see in this review, it's still a great choice for outdoor use, and with current sales prices, it's a real bargain to boot. Since we're talking about price, you can get a 2-pack of these little guys for under $20 with the current Amazon price coupon. I'll have a link in the description below. As we get started, thanks for watching this Gadget Talk video. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel, and if you like what you see, consider becoming a channel member. Despite the fact that so many things in today's economy have increased in price, that doesn't seem to be the case for budget category HTs. I found an RT-85 2-pack on Amazon during the Fall Prime Day event recently, and even after the event, Retevis has had a $10 off coupon, which brings the price of these little radios down to under $10 each. That makes these radios perfect for a go bag to keep in the car, or if you're part of a radio club, giving them away to new members who recently passed their technician class exam. Obviously, they're also good for new hams on a budget. Now, in case you're wondering, I purchased these radios for this review. As with a number of Chinese-made radios, there are a couple of versions of this radio with different model numbers or brand names. For instance, with the exception of some perhaps minor firmware differences, the TYT THUV888 and the Gigaparts Explorer QRZ1 are essentially this same radio, albeit quite a bit more expensive. Before we start looking at the radio, there's one thing I'd like to point out. In this combo pack, the RT-85s come with smaller batteries that aren't USB-C chargeable. The good news is that if milliamp hours and USB-C charging is important to you, you can find larger USB-C rechargeable batteries for about $14. Batteries for the Baofeng GM15 Pro are available on Amazon, and I'll leave a link below. I've got a GM15 Pro and checked it out. They work fine. So, with that out of the way, let's take a look at what comes in the box. So here's the box the RT-85 comes in. It's really pretty compact. There's not a lot that goes in it. It's got the serial number and that kind of stuff here on the outside, but what's inside that counts. So let's take a look at that. First thing is a user's manual. It's a little bit larger than some. There's not a lot of pages, but it's documented, the contents, drawings, and then, as is typical with many of the Retevis radios, the various accesses and then definitions of what these menu items are displayed, as you can see here. And then some of the tasks are outlined in the fairly small type here, and then it gives you a list of the CT, CSS, and DCS codes. So it's pretty typical of a user's manual for these kinds of radios. The next accessories that we've got is, of course, the antenna, and it's a dual band antenna. It says it's good from 136 to 174 and 400 to 480 megahertz. And it's just the skinny rubber ducky, if you will, a lanyard that will fit on the radio if you like to use a wrist strap, and then the belt clip. And in this case, the radio belt clip has the screws in the package, so I'm going to leave it there until I'm ready to put it on the radio. Now, to charge the radio, it comes with a desktop charger. It's got a US plug. It's hardwired into the charger, and you just drop the radio in there, and the little LED here will show whether it's charging or whether it's finished charging in that kind of case. So let's do a quick tour of the exterior of the radio. We've got the little screen cover here. Ooh, we got to take this off. Yes, there we go. On the top of the radio, we've got a female SMA, and you remember when I showed you the antenna, it had the male end buried in there. So that's different from some of the other radios, but the SMA is common. You just have to keep an eye out on whether you've got male or female that you need on the antenna. So if you're buying a third-party antenna, you get the right kind. The little LED that shows transmit and receive is there. The LED flashlight is there. And, of course, the on-off button is right there. On the front of the radio, we've got the grid where the speaker is. And then we've got the screen right here. And then here we've got the keypad. So the F is the menu button, and the AB will switch or exit menu. This will turn on the FM radio, and a quick press will change it from channel to VFO mode. And then these are up and down buttons, and then you can type in channels or use the up and down buttons, as is the case with most of these radios. And then the microphone is just a little teeny tiny hole right there in that grid. On this side, we've got the push-to-talks and side keys. So we've got a programmable side key here, and the push-to-talk there. On the back, we've got the little loop for the lanyard that I just showed you. Here are the holes for the screws for the belt clip. The pads for the charging cradle. Again, notice there's no USB-C on the battery. The battery releases easily just with a little downward press, and then it slides out. You can see that it's got an FCC ID number, and then the battery is a 7.4 volt battery here, and it says it's a 1450 milliamp hour battery. And then it snaps in easily, just pushing forward, and then the little button will click closed. And then on this side, we've got the K1 connector with the small and large plugs for programming or an external microphone. So that's the exterior tour. Now, let's turn the radio on and do a quick power on tour. And so we'll start by turning it on. And I hope you can see what's on the screen. I've set the menus to leave it on and to adjust the brightness, which isn't always an available option, but this radio you can set the brightness, so hopefully you can see the numbers and so forth. So on across the top of the screen, you can see the typical symbols. So it's wideband, dual watch, high power, the battery here. You can see that I've got this in the VFO mode. I can change to channel mode by pressing the pound key. And now I'm on channel 10, and these are just the channels that were programmed in it. I haven't done any programming myself. I can change from A to B by using the AB button, and then I can go into the menu by pressing the F key, which is pretty typical. It's sometimes labeled menu, sometimes there's icons. This one has an F. Menu. And so you can see the voice comes in with the menu, and then you can work your way up and down the menu with the up and down, or by typing in a number. So again, we'll go to the menu. Menu. So we've got menu item 1 is scan. If I go up, I've got up to menu item 36, which gives me the firmware and the radio version. I can reset, dual watch, all of those typical things. And then I can also type in a number if I'd rather. So I can go busy lock. So I got busy lockout. And you can hear that I've got the voice set. So the voice comes on. And I can set these there with the voice, although the sub choices do not have a voice associated with them. Okay, so on the side keys, we've got a side key up here, short press, turns on the lamp, long press, doesn't do anything, it appears. And down here, the lower side key, short press, goes into monitor, so it breaks the squelch, and so it allows you to hear those really low signal transmissions. And then a long press, again, doesn't do anything. So those are the two side keys. When we get to the CPS, we'll take a look and see if those are programmable or not. And so that's kind of what we've got here from a power on perspective. These things work all pretty much the same, and This is, as I've mentioned before, a little bit older radio, came out in 2020, but it's got an easy to read screen. I hope you can see that here with the lights on under the camera, and it's got all the standard indicators, and as an LCD screen should be easily readable outdoors. Now, let's do 2 quick tests for overall radio quality. The first is a transmit power test, and the second, we'll take a look at signal purity. Let's do a power test on the output of the RT-85. We'll use high power in the 2 meter and in the 70 centimeter bands. I'm not all that interested in what the output is on lower power settings, so we'll just limit it to high power. I've got this going into my MFJ 874. I'm going to have this set at the 20 watt level, so we'll be reading on the second arc from the bottom. And as always, we're broadcasting into a dummy load. And so let's take a look at what we've got here on 2 meters on high power. So that looks like about 5.5, 5.4 watts. Now let's jump up to 70 centimeters. Again, high power. And that's 4.95 watts. So this is really good output for a small radio advertised as it is. So 5 watts at 70 centimeters and about, 5.5 at 2 meters. So let's take a look at signal quality. Now, I've tested this already, so I know where this is going to end up, but I'm using the Tiny SA, the basic Tiny SA, which has the lower range and the upper range. I've tested the upper range, and it's clear too. I'll have a photo here overlaid here in just a second, but let's do this live here with the RT-85 into the lower range with 40 dB of attenuation, and we'll see what we've got. The little blue line represents that minus 16.02 dB that the signal quality regulations call for here in the 2 meter band. So let's press this. I've got it on high power 146.520 going into the Tiny SA. And so you can see that's a clean signal. There's just no noise at all. And here I'll overlay the photo of the upper level to show that there's nothing happening up there either. So a very clean signal out of the RT-85. While the radio is programmable from the faceplate, I tend to use either the factory customer programming software or Chirp if the radio is compatible. Since the RT-85 has been out for a while, I was glad to see it listed with the Chirp-compatible radios. Here's a quick overview using Chirp for some basic programming tasks. So here's a quick look at Chirp as we use it with the RT-85. We're going to start by downloading from the radio, so we'll go up here to download from radio. So I went to Device Manager to look up what this programming cable connects to, and it is COM3. I've got Retevis selected here out of all of the choices, and then I've got the model RT-85, and so I'm going to click OK. I've got the K1 connected to the radio, and the radio is on. You can see it's downloading from the radio. So here we can see we've got all these channels listed, 17 of them, and they're not the kind of things that I want. I wish they would leave these empty, but if you got the radio and turned it on, you wanted to see that it worked, it's fine. But I'm going to clean these up and we'll come back to do that. But in the meantime, I want to go over to settings here real quick, and we'll go here. And we can see we've got choices here. So priority transmit is the main channel. I can make changes to that using the drop-down box, the last channel or main channel. The Vox level, squelch level, for me, squelch 3 usually works. So I'm going to change that to squelch 3. The LED display mode is on. The color brightness I've set. And all of these things I can go down and make changes to. Then I can go into my advanced settings. There's not too many here, but I can make, say, a message. I want to maybe put my call sign instead of RT-85 when the radio comes up. So let's do that. I don't want a second one. Well, I do. I want a second one. I want to put my name. So I'm going to put Jim Mohan. I can go to my work mode settings and I can select A or B select for all of these and make these changes, and then I can add presets for my FM radio. So that's kind of cool. I'm not going to do that right now, but know that you have the ability to do that. So I'm going to step away from the recording right here, and then I'm going to make the changes here, and I'll explain to you what I've done. So here you can see I'm back, and I've made some entries into the channels here, and these I just typed in. I'll show you another way to do that here in just a second, but here are just some of the repeaters that are up by where I live. The offsets are computed automatically if the repeater uses the standard US offsets. And so you see I've got these things. You know, to make an entry, you just click on it like any other spreadsheet. The TQSL puts a number over here that's both in and out, and if it's just tone, it's just for the input. And so these are the ones that I've chosen to enter. Now you'll notice down here I added in the GMRS frequencies. Now the radio is not going to transmit, but I can certainly listen on the GMRS frequencies. And the way I did that, as opposed to type them all in, one of the advantages for Chirp is that you can go up here and you can go to open stock configurations, and there's a whole bunch of things, you know, railroad frequencies, marine frequencies, and here are the GMRS frequencies. So when I clicked on that, I ended up with this display with all of that stuff in this gray box. I right-clicked on it and I cut it, and then when I moved over here, I just pasted it into this area. So cut and paste works really well, one of the advantages of working in Chirp. Now the other thing you can do to avoid having to do a lot of keying is you can go into the radio and then click on open source, and you can use, like for example, Repeater Book to download the repeaters in the Repeater Book database, and you can specify state, you can specify geography, a number of ways. You can specify the band that you want, and so in this case I did that, and this is what I ended up with. So these are all of the 2 meter and 70 centimeter repeaters that Repeater Book knows about here in the state of Arizona, and you can see there are hundreds of them. And so at this point you could go through and delete the ones you don't want and then move the memories up, again mostly using the right click to do these things, and you can make a list of repeaters and then again cut and paste into the Retevis RT-85 image file here. So I've got my settings set, I've got my memory set, and so at this point I can go back up here to my radio and then I can upload to the radio. Again, these things haven't changed. You can see that it's writing to the radio. The little green receive light on the radio is flashing, indicating it's receiving data. And now when the radio rebooted, it said my call sign and my name, so I know that it took, and then these various channels that I've programmed here are in the radio. The factory CPS is very similar and is available from Retevis on its website. For basic tasks, it works just fine. So here's the factory version of the CPS, and in this case I'm going to upload from the radio. So I'm going to go here up to settings, and I'm going to set my control port, and it's COM3 as it was before. I'm using the same cable. And then now I'm going to go here to program, and I'm going to read from the radio. You can see the read is progressing across the status bar. It was successful. And then here are all those same channels. So there's all those GMRS channels. Here's my 70 centimeter channels. Here are the 2 meter channels that I programmed in. So all that stuff is there. And then down here in this tree, I can go and do some of the other things. So for example, you know, set VFO information. I usually don't mess with that. My basic information is here in terms of frequency. There's the squelch level I changed. I've got a timeout timer set for 60 seconds. Here's my name and call sign that I made the change before, and you can change that here in the factory settings as well. There's DTMF stuff, 2-tone and 5-tone coding. That's more commercial than it is for ham. set frequency ranges, and here's where you can put in the FM broadcast channels should you want to do that. So you can see this is very functional. What it doesn't have is the ability to import, which is really handy in the Chirp program. To make changes here, you just double click, type in the frequency. You'll have to type in the offset yourself here, and then put in the code, decode, encode, and all the other information that you have gotten here. Now if we click here under the More column, what we do is we get all that information in a box instead of in a spreadsheet. So it's just a matter of how you choose to enter the data. And then when we're done, we simply go back here to program, and we're going to write to the radio. We get that writing. The green light is again flashing. And then it's always a good idea to save the program to a file in your computer so that if you mess things up or something else happens, you can access all that input that you've made without having to start over. So that's the factory CPS. In my opinion, at this price point, the RT-85 is a real bargain. It will allow you to do all the basic ham HT tasks while being inexpensive enough not to worry about taking it along on hikes or camping trips. While it's not waterproof, it does seem quite rugged, and you won't be deeply disappointed if you break it or lose it. The RT-85 is very similar to the RA-89. That radio has a higher advertised power output, an IP68 intrusion protection score, and USB-C rechargeable battery. I have a review of that radio here on the channel, and I'll link it on the end card. Unfortunately, while still reasonably priced at about $55, the RA-89 is still about 5 times more expensive than the RT-85 in this bundle. Well, there you have it. If you're looking for a solid budget-class ham HT that's good in bright sunlight, the RT-85 should be one of the radios you're considering. At this price point, it's probably worth getting even if you think you don't need one. Can anybody say spare? Join me over here for my RA-89 review, and be sure to click the thumbs up button and subscribe to the Gadget Talk channel. Thanks for watching, and 73.